What I want to talk about today is negotiation, and I particularly want to talk about the issue of why is it that we have this notion of winning in a negotiation to the extent that we focus on beating the other person even if it makes us significantly worse off. Because what I want to sort of end the session with is at least having you think about the importance of actually getting a good deal, and that good deal is not characterized solely by did I beat the other guy. Because if it is characterized solely by do I think I beat the other person, then a very sophisticated negotiation counterpart can do wonderful things to make you feel like you've won when in fact you've lost. And so what we're going to do today is talk about the characteristics that lead us to this emphasis on winning above all, and in fact result in the fact that winners in the end, in this kind of scenario, don't take all. In fact, they may end up taking a whole lot less than they think they did. So the first thing I want to do is talk about what is negotiation, because a lot of us have a very specific notion of what the term negotiation means, and we typically think about it as an interaction where there is a winner and a loser, and whatever it is I gain at your expense. I must take from you. And whatever it is you get, you must then take from me. And it is part of this definition that we have in our heads, this sort of zero-sum perspective, that really emphasizes how powerful this winner-take-all notion is. Because in fact, negotiation can be a much broader process, more beyond than simply winning and losing, but really it talks about creating value, and having now created value, how to claim it. And so the definition, the working definition that I use, is that negotiation is a process whereby two or more parties decide what each will give and take in their relationship. That give and take can be issues that are tangible in nature. It can be intangible issues. It can be issues of improving the relationship, can be part of our negotiation, as well as who gets how much of this particular resource. And in fact, this notion of what is it I give and what is it I get in the context of a relationship really goes beyond the typical things that we think about as negotiation and encompasses a lot of the social exchanges that we engage in on a daily basis. But before we get to sort of thinking about negotiation as simply creating and claiming value, which is a wonderful way to think about it, let's first talk about why it is and what is it that we need to think about in a negotiation, and why is it that we find ourselves in this kind of win-lose perspective. One of the first issues is, what do we think about the goal of a negotiation being? And most of us would think about the goal is to win, and that is in many respects to beat our counterpart. We may hope we create value. We oftentimes don't engage in a systematic planning process to be able to figure out whether we create value or not. But we also may decide that what we really want to do in this negotiation is get out of it. Because, for example, most people are not really very enamored of this topic called negotiation. For example, how many of you on a typical day wake up in the morning and say, you know what, this would be a really good day if I get to negotiate? One. Okay. That's about the percentage, okay? It turns out very few people say, gosh, you know, one of the things that really gets me up in the morning is the opportunity to negotiate. Most of us say, oh my God, I have to negotiate today. And it's like, you know, sort of being beaten. You just rather sit in a dark closet rather than doing this. And part of what I want us to try to think about is that in fact, while we may not wake up in the morning with the idea, let's negotiate, in fact, we engage in so many negotiations that we might as well do that. The question now is, how can we be more effective in those negotiations? So I want to suggest that besides winning, there are lots of different things we can think about in a negotiation. One is to create value. Another one is perhaps to improve the relationship between the parties. But sort of the summary of that is, what do you want to do in a negotiation? What's your primary goal? Is to get a good deal.